Having a connectivity problem. How we doing, Jay Morris? Thought we'd read the book of Zekaryah today. Maybe others will show up, maybe not. In the 8th new moon of the 2nd year of Darwesh, the word of Yahweh came to Zechariah, son of Berechiah, son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, Yahweh was very wroth with your fathers, and you shall say to them, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, Turn back to me, declares Yahweh of hosts, and I shall turn back to you, declares Yahweh of hosts. Do not be like your fathers, to whom the former prophets proclaimed, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, Turn back now from your evil ways and your evil deeds. But they did not obey or give heed to me, declares Yahweh. Your fathers, where are they? And the prophets, do they live forever? But my words and my laws, which I commanded my servants, the prophets, did they not overtake your fathers? Then they turned back and said, As Yahweh of hosts planned to do to us, according to our ways and according to our deeds, so he has done with us. On the 24th day of the 11th new moon, which is the new moon Shabbat, in the 2nd year of Darwesh, the word of Yahweh came to Zechariah, son of Berechiah, son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, I looked at night and saw a man riding on a red horse, and he was standing among the myrtle trees in the shade. And behind him were horses, red, sorrel, and white. And I said, My master, what are these? And the messenger who was speaking to me said to me, Let me show you what they are. And the man who stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, They are the ones Yahweh has sent to go throughout the earth. And they answered the messenger of Yahweh who stood among the myrtle trees and said, We have gone throughout the earth, and see, all the earth is at peace and rest. And the messenger of Yahweh answered and said, O Yahweh of hosts, how long would you have no compassion on Jerusalem and on the cities of Yehudah, against which you were enraged these 70 years? And Yahweh answered the messenger who talked to me good words, comforting words. And the messenger who spoke with me said to me, Proclaim, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, I have been jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with great jealousy. And I am very wroth with the nations. Shalom, Hooter. Who are at ease, for when I was a little wroth, they furthered the evil. Therefore, thus said Yahweh, I shall return to Jerusalem with compassion. My house shall be built in it, declares Yahweh of hosts, and the surveyor's line be stretched out over Jerusalem. Again proclaim, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, Again my cities shall overflow with goodness, and Yahweh shall again comfort Zion, and shall again choose Jerusalem. And I lifted up my eyes and looked, and saw 4 horns. And I said to the messenger who was speaking to me, What are these? And he said to me, These are the horns that have scattered Yehudah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And Yahweh showed me 4 craftsmen. And I said, What are these coming to do? And he spoke, saying, These are the horns that scattered Yehudah, so that no one lifted up his head. But these come to trouble them, to throw down the horns of the nations that lifted up their horn against the land of Yehudah, to scatter it. And I lifted up my eyes and looked, and saw a man with a measuring line in his hand. And I said, Where are you going? And he said to me, To measure Jerusalem, to see what its width and what its length is. And see, the messenger who was speaking to me was going out, and another messenger was coming out to meet him. And he said to him, Run, speak this to this young man, saying, Jerusalem is to remain unwalled, because of the many men and livestock in it. For I myself am to her, declares Yahweh, a wall of fire all around, and for esteem I am in her midst. Oh, and flee from the land of the north, declares Yahweh, for I have scattered you like the four winds of the heavens, declares Yahweh. O Zion, escape, you who dwell with the daughter of Babel. For thus said Yahweh of hosts, for the sake of esteem he sent me to the nations which plunder you. For he who touches you touches the apple of my eye. For look, I am waving my hand against them, and they shall become spoil for their servants. And you shall know that I, Yahweh of hosts, has sent me. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for look, I am coming and shall dwell in your midst, declares Yahweh. And many nations shall be joined to Yahweh in that day, and they shall become my people, and I shall dwell in your midst, and you shall know that I, Yahweh of hosts, has sent me to you. And Yahweh shall inherit Yehudah, his portion in the set-apart land, and he shall again choose Jerusalem. Hush all flesh before Yahweh, for he has roused himself out of his set-apart dwelling. So this is talking about the coming of Messiah. Chapter 1 starts out talking about turning back to the Father. In Deuteronomy 28, it tells you to turn back. If you do not guard my commands, I will turn my face from you. But if you turn back to me, I will bless you. Right? Tearing stuff up here. How's everybody doing today? And then the scriptures, Zekaryah, page 636, chapter 3. And he showed me Yehoshua, the high priest, standing before the messenger of Yahweh, and Satan standing at his right hand to be an adversary to him. And Yahweh said to Satan, Yahweh rebuke you, Satan. Yahweh, who has chosen Jerusalem, rebuke you. Is this not a brand plucked from the fire? And Yehoshua was dressed in filthy garments and was standing before the messenger. And he answered and spoke to those who stood before him, saying, Remove the filthy garments from him. And to him he said, See, I have removed your guilt from you, and you shall put costly robes on you. 2:6. Flee from the land of the north, declares Yahweh, for I have scattered you like the four winds of the heavens. I believe that's calling them to come back. Because in verse 7 it says, O Zion, escape, you who dwell with the daughter of Babel. I believe that is the Father calling his people back to him. Because if you go into the Gospels, I can't remember, I think it's Revelations, it talks about when they come back into the land, they will live in cities without walls, because the protection of those cities will be the Father. right? Our faith that the Father will protect us. He will see us through. In verse 5, and let them put a clean turban on his head. Then they put a clean turban on his head, and they put garments on him. And the messenger of Yahweh stood by. And the messenger of Yahweh witnessed to Yehoshua, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, if you walk in my ways, and if you guard my duty, then you shall also rule my house, and also guard my courts. And I shall give you access among these standing here. Now listen, Yehoshua the high priest, you and your companions who sit before you, for they are men of symbol. For look, I am bringing forth my servant, the branch. See the stone which I have put before Yehoshua, on one stone are 7 eyes. See, I am engraving its inscription, declares Yahweh of hosts. I shall remove the guilt of that land in one day. In that day, declares Yahweh of hosts, you shall invite one another under the vine and under the fig tree. So the 7 eyes could be representative of the 7 assemblies. And the messenger who was speaking to me came back and woke me up, as a man is awakened from sleep. And he said to me, what do you see? So I said, well, I'd say that you're doing what's right, Jay. Just be ready. I mean, when the Father tells you it's time to move, at least you'll be ready to go, right? I mean, he gave forewarning to Noah before the flood. He has given forewarning to all of his peoples before his actions, right? Shalom, Brian. Yes, it's always a splendid Sabbath when you set it apart to the Father, right? We're in Zekaryah chapter 4 right now. And he said to me, what do you see? So I said, I have looked and see a lampstand all of gold with a bowl on top of it. And on the stand 7 lamps with 7 spouts to the 7 lamps. And 2 olive trees are by it, one at the right of the bowl and the other at its left. Then I responded and spoke to the messenger who was speaking to me, saying, what are these, my master? And the messenger who was speaking to me answered and said to me, do you not know what these are? And I said, no, my master. And he answered and said to me, this is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, said Yahweh of hosts. Who are you, great mountain, before Zerubbabel, a plain? And he shall bring forth the capstone with shouts of favor to it. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house, and his hands shall complete it. And you shall know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. For who has despised the day of small beginnings? They shall rejoice when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These 7 are the eyes of Yahweh, which diligently search throughout all the earth. Then I responded and said to him, what are these 2 olive trees? One at the right of the lampstand, the other at the left. And I responded a second time and said to him, what are these 2 olive branches which empty golden oil from themselves, by means of the 2 golden pipes. And he answered me and said, Do you not know what these are? And I said, No, my master. And he said, These are the 2 anointed ones, who stand beside the master of all the earth. And I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and saw a flying scroll. And he said to me, What do you see? And I answered, I see a flying scroll, 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide. And he said to me, This is the curse that goes forth over the face of all the earth. Everyone who is stealing shall go unpunished. On the one side, according to it, and everyone who has sworn falsely shall go unpunished on the other side, according to it. I shall send it out, declares Yahweh of hosts, and it shall come into the house of the thief, and the house of the one who shall swear falsely by my name, and it shall remain in the midst of his house, and shall consume it, both its timber and stones. And the messenger who was speaking with me came out and said to me, Lift up your eyes now and see what this is that is going forth. And I said, What is it? And he said, It is an ephah measure that is going forth. Again he said, This is their appearance throughout the earth. And see, a lead cover lifted up, and this, a woman sitting inside the ephah measure. And he said, This is wrongness. And he threw her down into the ephah measure, and threw the lead weight over its mouth. And I lifted up my eyes and looked, and saw 2 women coming with the wind in their wings. And they had wings like wings of a stork, and they lifted up the ephah measure between earth and the heavens. Then I said to the messenger who was speaking to me, Where are they taking the ephah measure? And he said to me, To build a house for it in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there on its own base. Yeah, pretty close. IBC missiles. And I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and saw 4 chariots coming from between 2 mountains. And the mountains were mountains of bronze. With the first chariot were red horses, and with the second chariot black horses, and with the third chariot white horses, and with the fourth chariot strong speckled horses. So I responded and said to the messenger who was speaking to me, What are these, my master? And the messenger answered and said to me, These are 4 spirits of the heavens coming forth from presenting themselves before the master of all the earth. The one with black horses is going out to the land of the north, and the white ones have gone out after them, and the speckled ones have gone out to the land of the south. And the strong ones went out, eager to go, to walk to and fro in the earth. And he said, Go walk to and fro in the earth. So they walked to and fro in the earth. And he called to me and spoke to me, saying, See, those who go toward the land of the north have given rest to my spirit in the land of the north. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Receive the gift from the exiles, from Heldai, Tobiah, and Yediah, who have come from Babel. Then you shall go the same day and enter the house of Yoshia, son of Zephaniah, and you shall take the silver and gold, make a crown, and set it on the head of Yehoshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and shall speak to him, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, saying, See, the man whose name is the branch, and from his place he shall branch out, and he shall build the Hekal of Yahweh. It is he who is going to build the Hekal of Yahweh. It is he who is going to bear the splendor. And he shall sit and rule on his throne, and shall be a priest on his throne. And the counsel of peace shall be between them both, while the crown is for a remembrance in the Hekal of Yahweh, to Hamel and to Tobiah and to Jedaiah, and to Hen, son of Zephaniah, and those who are far away shall come and build the Hakal of Yahweh, and you shall know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. And this shall be if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. A lot of foot stomping on obedience, right? And in the 4th year of sovereign Darius, it came to be that the word of Yahweh came to Zekaryah on the 4th of the 9th new moon, Kislev. Now Bethiel had sent Sharezer with Regem Melech and his men to pray before Yahweh, speaking to the priests who belonged to the house of Yahweh of hosts, and to the prophets, saying, should I weep in the 5th new moon and fast as I have done for so many years? Then the word of Yahweh of hosts came to me, saying, speak to all the people of the land, and to the priests, saying, when you fasted and lamented in the 5th and 7th months, all these 70 years, did you truly fast for me? For me. And when you ate and when you drank, was it not for those eating and for those drinking? Are these not the words which Yahweh proclaimed through the former prophets when Jerusalem and the cities around it were inhabited and in safety, and the south and the low country were inhabited? And the word of Yahweh came to Zechariah, saying, thus said Yahweh of hosts, execute true right ruling, show loving commitment and compassion, everyone to his brother. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the sojourner or the poor, and do not plot evil in your hearts against one another. But they refused to listen, and they shrugged their shoulders and stopped their ears from hearing, and they made their hearts like flint against hearing the Torah, and the words which Yahweh of hosts had sent by his Spirit through the former prophets. Therefore great wrath came from Yahweh of hosts, and it came to be, as he called, and they did not hear, so let them call, but I shall not hear, said Yahweh of hosts. And it came to be, as he called, and they did not hear, and I scattered them with a storm wind, a storm wind, among all the nations which they had not known, and the land was laid waste behind them, no one passing through or returning, for they made the pleasant land a waste. So he called, you did not listen. So when you cry out to him, he does not listen. Yeah, I mean, he did it to the children of Israel in the early times. And the word of Yahweh of hosts came, saying, thus said Yahweh of hosts, I shall be jealous for Zion with great jealousy, with great wrath I shall be jealous for her. Thus said Yahweh, I shall return to Zion, and I shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem shall be called city of the truth, and the mountain of Yahweh of hosts, the set-apart mountain. Thus said Yahweh of hosts again, old men and old women shall dwell in the streets of Jerusalem, each one with his staff in his hand, because of great age. And the streets of the city shall be filled with boys and girls playing in the streets. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, if it is marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, should it also be marvelous in my eyes? Declares Yahweh of hosts. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, see, I am saving my people from the land of the sunrise and from the land of the sunset, and I shall bring them back, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their Elohim, in truth and in righteousness. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, let your hands be strong, you who are listening in these days. to these words from the mouth of the prophets of the day the foundation was laid for the house of Yahweh of hosts, the Hekal that was to be rebuilt. For before these days there was not a wage for a man, nor a hire for a beast, and there was no peace for him who went out or came in, because of his enemies, and I set all men one against another. But now I am not as in the former days, to be the remnant of this people, declares Yahweh of hosts. Because of the sowing of peace, the vine does give its fruit. The ground does give her increase, and the heavens do give their due. And I shall cause the remnant of this people to inherit all these. And it shall be, as you were a curse among the nations, O house of Yehudah and house of Israel, so shall I save you, and you shall be a blessing. Do not fear, let your hands be strong. For thus said Yahweh of hosts, as I proposed to do evil to you when your fathers provoked me, declares Yahweh of hosts, and I did not relent, so again in these days I have proposed to go to do good to Jerusalem and to the house of Yehudah. Do not fear. These are the words you should do. Speak the truth to one another. The truth, right? Speak the truth to one another. Judge with truth. And right ruling for peace in your gates. And do not plot evil in your heart against one another. Do not love a false oath. For all these I hate, declares Yahweh. And the word of Yahweh of hosts came to me, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, the fast of the 4th, and the fast of the 5th, and the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th months are to be joy and gladness and pleasant appointed times for the house of Yehudah. And they shall love the truth and the peace. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, peoples shall yet come, inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of the one go to another, saying, Let us earnestly go and pray before Yahweh and seek Yahweh of hosts. I myself am going. And many peoples and strong nations shall come to seek Yahweh of hosts in Jerusalem and to pray before Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, in those days 10 men from all languages of the nations take hold. Yes, they shall take hold of the corner of the garment of a man, a Yehudi, saying, Let us go with you, for we have heard that Elohim is with you. The message of the word of Yahweh against the land of Hadrach and Damascus, its resting place, when the eyes of man and all the tribes of Israel are on Yahweh. And Hamath also borders on it, Sor and Sidon, though they are very wise. For Sor built herself a tower, heaped up silver like the dust, and gold like the mud of the trees of the streets. See, Yahweh shall dispossess her, and he shall strike her power in the sea, and she shall be consumed by fire. Ashlekon sees it and fears, Azah too, writhing in anguish, and Ekron, for her expectation has dried up. And the sovereign shall perish from Azah, and from Ashkelon shall not be inhabited. And a mamzer shall settle in Ashad, so I shall cut off the pride of the Philistines, and shall take away his blood from his mouth, and the abominations from between his teeth, and he shall remain, even he, to our Elohim, and he shall be like a leader in Yehudah, and Ekron like a Jebusite. And I shall encamp around my house against an army, against him who passes by, and him who returns, so that no oppressor passes through them again. For now I have seen with my eyes. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. See, your sovereign is coming to you. He is righteous and endowed with deliverance, humble and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey, coming of Messiah. And I shall cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall speak peace to the nations, and his rule is from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. Also you, because of the blood of your covenant, I shall send your prisoners out of the pit. Return to the stronghold, you prisoners of the expectation. Even today I declare that I return double to you. For I shall bend Yehudah for me. I shall fill the bow with Ephraim, and I shall stir up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece, and I shall make you like the sword of a mighty man. And Yahweh shall appear for them, and his arrow go forth like lightning, and the master Yahweh sound with the shofar, and he shall go with the whirlwinds from the south. And Yahweh of hosts shall shield them, and they shall devour and trample on sling stones, and they shall drink, roar as if with wine, and they shall be filled like basins, like the corners of the slaughter place. And Yahweh their Elohim shall save them in that day, as the flock of his people, for the stones of a diadem sparkling over his land. For what goodness is he, and what comeliness is his. Grain make the young men thrive, and new wine the maidens. How we doing in the chat? Questions, comments, eye openings? All right. Zekaryah 10. Ask Yahweh for rain in the time of the latter rain. Yahweh who makes storm clouds, and he gives them showers of the rain, the plants in the field to everyone. For the household idols spoke emptiness, and diviners saw falsehood, and relate dreams of deceit. They comfort in vain. Therefore they have wandered about like sheep. They are afflicted, for there is no shepherd. My wrath burns against the shepherds, and I lay a charge against the leaders. For Yahweh of hosts shall visit his flock, the house of Yehudah, and make them like his splendid horse in battle. From him comes the cornerstone, from him the tent peg, from him the battle bow, from him every ruler together. And they shall be like mighty men who trample down the mud of the streets in the battle. And they shall fight because Yahweh is with them. And the riders on horses shall be put to shame. And I shall make the house of Yehudah mighty and save the house of Joseph. And I shall bring them back because I have compassion on them. And they shall be as though I had not pushed them aside. For I am Yahweh their Elohim, and I answer them. And Ephraim shall be as a mighty man, and their heart shall rejoice as if with wine, and their children shall see and rejoice, their heart exulting in Yahweh. I shall whistle for them and gather them, for I shall ransom them, and they shall increase as they once increased. Though I sow them among peoples, they shall remember me in places far away, and they shall live together with their children, and they shall return. And I shall bring them back from the land of Mitzrayim, and gather them from Ashur, and bring them into the land of Gilad and Lebanon, until no more room is found for them. And he shall pass through the sea of distress, and strike the waves of the sea, and all the depths of the river shall dry up. And the pride of Ashur shall be brought down, and the scepter of Mitzrayim be taken away. And I shall make them mighty in Yahweh, so that they walk up and down his name, declares Yahweh. Open your doors, O Lebanon, and let fire devour your cedars. Howl, O Cypress, for the cedar has fallen, because the mighty are ravaged. Howl, O oaks of Bashan, for the dense forest has come down. Listen, the howling of shepherds, for their splendor is ravaged. Listen, the roaring of lions, for the pride of the Yarden is ravaged. Thus said Yahweh my Elohim, feed the flock for slaughter, whose owners kill them and feel no guilt. And their sellers say, blessed be Yahweh, for I have become rich. And their own shepherds do not spare them. For I shall no longer spare the inhabitants of the land, declares Yahweh. But see, I am delivering up mankind, each one into his neighbor's hand, and into the hand of his sovereign, and they shall crush the earth, but I do not deliver from their hand. So I shepherded the flock meant for slaughter, the truly poor of the flock, and I took for myself 2 staffs, the one I called pleasantness, and the other I called unity, and I shepherded the flock. Then I sent off the 3 shepherds in 1 month, for my being despised them, and their being also loathed me. So I said, I am not shepherding you. Let the dying die, and the straying stray, and let those who are left eat each other's flesh. And I took my staff pleasantness, and I cut it in 2, to break the covenant which I had made with all the peoples. So it was broken on that day, and the poor of the flock who were watching me knew that it was the word of Yahweh. And I said to them, if it is good in your eyes, give me my wages, and if not, refrain. So they weighed out for my wages 30 pieces of silver. And Yahweh said to me, throw it to the potter, the splendid price at which I was valued by them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of Yahweh for the potter. Then I cut in 2 my other staff, unity, to break the brotherhood between Yehudah and Israel. And Yahweh said to me, take again the implements of a foolish shepherd. For look, I am raising up a shepherd in the land who does not visit those straying, nor seek the young, nor heal those that are broken, nor feed those that still stand. But he does eat the flesh of the fat and tear off their hooves. Woe to the worthless shepherd forsaking the flock. Let a sword be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall wither, and his right eye shall be dimmed. The message of the word of Yahweh against Israel, Yahweh stretching out of the heavens and laying the foundation of the earth, and forming the spirit of man within him, declares, see, I am making Jerusalem a cup of reeling to all the people all around, and also against Yehudah. It is in the siege against Jerusalem. And in that day it shall be that I make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All lifting it are severely injured, and all the nations of the earth shall be gathered against it. In that day, declares Yahweh, I strike every horse with bewilderment, and its rider with madness. And on the house of Yehudah I open my eyes, but every horse of the peoples I strike with blindness. And the leaders of Yehudah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem are a strength to me through Yahweh of hosts, their Elohim. In that day I make the leaders of Yehudah like a fire pot amongst trees, and like a torch of fire in the sheaves. and they shall consume all the peoples all around, on the right and on the left. And Jerusalem shall dwell again in her own place in Jerusalem. And Yahweh shall save the tents of Yehudah first, so that the comeliness of the house of David and the comeliness of the inhabitants of Jerusalem would not become greater than that of Yehudah. In that day Yahweh shall shield the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the feeble among them in that day shall be like David, and the house of David like Elohim, like the messenger of Yahweh before them. And it shall be in that day that I seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. And I shall pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of favor and prayers. And they shall look on me, whom they pierced, and they shall mourn for him, as one mourns for his only son, and they shall be in bitterness over him, as a bitterness over the firstborn. In that day, the mourning in Jerusalem is going to be great, like the mourning at Hadad Rimmon in the valley of Megiddo. And the land shall mourn every clan by itself, the clan of the house of David by itself, and their women by themselves, the clan of the house of Nathan by itself, and their women by themselves, the clan of the house of Levi by itself, and their women by themselves, the clan of Shimei by itself, and their women by themselves, all the rest of the clans, every clan by itself, and their women by themselves. I mean, what year is this? I mean, the father told Zekaryah, the prophet, that they were going to kill him. He was going to send his son, and they were going to kill him. And they did not believe. And then it happened. In that day a fountain shall be opened for the house of David and for the inhabitants of Jerusalem, for sin and for uncleanness. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahweh of hosts, that I cut off the names of the idols from the earth, and they shall be remembered no more. And I shall also remove the prophets and the unclean spirit from the earth. And it shall be when one prophesies again, then his father and mother who brought him forth shall say to him, you shall not live, because you have spoken falsehood in the name of Yahweh. And his father and mother who brought him forth shall pierce him through when he prophesies. And it shall be in that day that the prophets shall be ashamed, every one of his vision when he prophesies, and not put a hairy robe on in order to deceive, but shall say, I am no prophet. I am a farmer, for a man sold me as a slave in my youth. And one shall say to him, what are these wounds in your hands? And he shall say, because I was struck at home by those who love me. O sword, awake against my shepherd, against the man who is my companion, declares Yahweh of hosts. Strike the shepherd and let the sheep be scattered. But I shall turn my hand upon the little ones, and I shall be throughout all the soil, declares Yahweh, that 2/3 therein are cut off and die, and 1/3 is left therein. And I shall bring the third into fire, and refine them as silver is refined, and try them as gold is tried. And they shall call on my name, and I shall answer them. I shall say, this is my people, while they say, Yahweh is my Elohim. See, a day shall come for Yahweh, and your spoil shall be divided in your midst. And I shall gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem, and the city shall be taken, the houses plundered, and the women ravished. Half the city shall go into exile, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. And Yahweh shall go forth, and he shall fight against those nations as he fights in the day of battle. And in that day his feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And on the Mount of Olives shall be split in two, from east to west, a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it towards the south. And you shall flee to the valley of my mountain, for the valley of the mountains reaches to its all. And you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, sovereign of Yehudah. And Yahweh my Elohim shall come, all the set apart ones with you. And in that day it shall be, there is no light, it is dark. And it shall be one day which is known to Yahweh, neither day nor night, but at the evening time there shall be light. And in that day it shall be that living waters flow from Jerusalem, half of them towards the eastern sea, and half of them towards the western sea, in summer as well as in winter. And Yahweh shall be sovereign over all of the earth. In that day there shall be one Yahweh, and his name one. All the land shall be changed into a desert plain from Geba to Ramon, south of Jerusalem, and she shall be raised up and inhabited in her place from Benjamin's gate to the place of the first gate, and the corner gate, and from the tower to Hemel, to the winepresses of the sovereign. And they shall dwell in her, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. And this is the plague which Yahweh plagues all the people who fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall decay while they stand on their feet, and their eyes decay in their sockets, and their tongues decay in their mouths. And it shall be in that day that a great confusion from Yahweh is among them, and every one of them shall seize the hand of his neighbor, and his hand rise up against his neighbor's hand. And Yehudah shall fight at Jerusalem as well, and the wealth of all the nations round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and garments in great quantities. So also is the plague on the horse, and the mule, on the camel, and the donkey, and all the cattle that are in those camps as this plague. And it shall be that all who are left from all the nations which came up against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to bow themselves to the sovereign Yahweh of hosts, and to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. I'm just about done, Kermode. Yeah, Jay, it does sound like radiation poisoning, doesn't it? I'm on 644, Kermode, finishing up Zekaryah 14. And it shall be that if any of the clans of the earth does not come up to Jerusalem to bow himself to the sovereign Yahweh of hosts, on them there is to be no rain. And if the clan of Mitzrayim does not come up and enter in, then there is no rain. On them is the plague with which Yahweh plagues the nations who do not come up to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. This is the punishment of Mitzrayim, and the punishment of all the nations that do not come up to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. In that day, set apart to Yahweh shall be engraved on the bells of the horses, and the pots in the house of Yahweh shall be like the bowls before the slaughter place. And every pot in Jerusalem and Yehudah shall be set apart to Yahweh of hosts. And all those who slaughter shall come and take them, and cook in them, and there shall no longer be a merchant in the house of Yahweh of hosts in that day. Yeah. So, foreshadowing of the coming of Messiah the first time. the four horsemen that are spoken of in Revelations are also spoken of in Zechariah. All the Father wants is for us to turn back to Him. He said it like 15 different times in those 14 chapters. Turn back to me. And at the end, every knee shall bow. Right? Every tongue shall confess. If you don't come up for the festival of Sukkot in Jerusalem, you will be cut off. You can't grow crops if there's no rain in the land. The rivers will dry up. The fields will burn. And you will no longer exist. That's not hard to comprehend. Thoughts? Everybody having a blessed Sukkot? Tell the family I said hi, Jay. Love you, brother. Shabbat shalom. Sukkot is great. My son and I have done it here on the farm. My wife is allergic to everything outside, so she does not like to camp. It's quite unfortunate. I keep telling her, if you just ask the Father, pray to the Father, be obedient, maybe He would take that from you. But your shalom is absent. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Kermode. I hope the Father will give it back to you. Anybody have thoughts that they'd like to share? Well, that'll happen. It doesn't have to happen, but it will happen, depending on one's heart condition. You're welcome, Hunter. We'll have to get together sometime, Hoot. I'm going to be in Oklahoma for Sukkot this year. I'm going to Palmettos. So, praise the Father that y'all decided to join in and listen. I thank Him all the time. Well, I am going to go and see what my family is doing. And that'd be awesome, Kermode. I will see some of you in the men's group later, and I will catch the rest of you in another live stream, whether it be mine or one of the other brothers. May the Father bless your day. Shabbat shalom, y'all.